Season 7, Episode 33, number 298 of the Decoded Podcast. Chris, what's going on?
I think it's funny. So I'm just looking at, I don't even know how I came across this, but are you the type of person on your resume to put coming soon courses on your resume?
No, I've never even
I know this is
considered that.
this is
Coming
this
soon.
is this is a completely, I wouldn't even say this is a pivot from our on ramp, but it's definitely we were not talking about this like 10 seconds ago.
Nope. Coming soon.
Yeah, I just saw someone post up into socials that I saw two different versions. I saw somebody just talking about taking AQs, but I also saw someone just recently, I just checked to see if it's still there, that they posted up information about kind of like it looks like a resume posting, and they're talking about how they're going to be completing a course in the future. And I just thought that was kind of fascinating. I don't think I've done that. Even if I was in process, I don't sort of put, I think in my resume, I deal with completion dates only.
It's funny.
Now, I'll just, let me add one thing to it. So even my theater resume, I don't put I like the production that I'm in right now. I won't add that to my resume until the end of the run in like 2 weeks. So I know what I need to write on there. It's just a funny little kind of, I don't know. I don't even think this is, this isn't even worthy of maybe unpacking on the pod, but I feel like I want to talk to some administrators and just ask them how often are they looking at resumes that they actually have to do a second glance at it to check the dates of certain things, right? Like, and if they've ever seen something like, so you're interviewing for, let's say, a job where the placement could be in semester 2. So it's sort of like it's a quick turnaround. And you see on the person's resume, so you're trying to secure a transfer within the board for semester 2 2024. And you're looking at the resume and you're like, fall 2025. Arts 1, visual arts 1, and you're sort of looking at like, okay, so this is so far off. Like, why are you including it on the resume now? Like, if it ain't going to be there for when you're coming into the school now, why are you sort of dumping it on there, right? It reminds me a little bit of I just had an idea. It's gone. It reminded me of something, sort of putting it that far off. It's gone. So it's just kind of, it had something to do with being, it's gone again. So yeah, it's kind of fascinating. Are you a completion date, as in you're only going to put stuff on your resume that you've actually, it's all sort of like in past tense?
So that's a great question, because you got me thinking about a couple of things. I tend to be traditionally, I've been a completion date person. These days, with like LinkedIn and stuff, I'm okay to put that I've started a new role somewhere doing something. Like the AQ instruction, that I'm okay to put there that I'm currently doing that, because I started it and it's still happening, right? Even if you skip a term or whatever, I don't go in to my LinkedIn and then have a completion date and then start a new date. No, OECTA and Brock University have said to me, you're one of our AQ instructors. Are you good with that? I'm like, yep. That started on a particular day. And until they tell me we don't need you anymore ever, that's when I will put a completion date. But until then, it's in progress. Mm-hmm. And I'm okay with in progress if it means something. So, which in the world of education doesn't mean much. So let me give you an example. So let's say I want to apply for a particular role, and in that role, you're gonna need you're gonna need a certain AQ,
Hmm.
and it's not a requirement, it's a desired asset. Because if it's a requirement, my understanding is nobody cares that you're in the middle of it. If
Hmm.
you applied for this job and we're interviewing you today and you don't have it, you shouldn't even be in the interview because you didn't make the cut. So how'd you end up here? So, but if it's one of those like a desired asset, um, and you put it on your resume in progress, so it's like, no, no, I've got all the requirements, and here are the 7 other things that you would love for your candidates to have, and I'm telling you, I'm working on the 7th right now. So by the time you hire me and the new school year starts, I will have it. I'm in the middle of it, and barring some craziness, I'm gonna get it. That's the only time that I really care about the in progress. But the rest is BS. Like, because if you told me, if you told me I could do that, that I could just say to you, coming soon, then I'd friggin' use that to my advantage for everything. I'd apply for jobs where I don't have the qualifications and just say, coming soon. Let's talk now, hire me, and then by the time the start date comes, I'll have it.
Hmm.
But I have a feeling too many people have done that too many times that's why there are rules and regulations that they're just not, people aren't going to operate that way. We don't care about the coming soon. Unless it's like an internal, like, I believe there's circumstances where it might make sense. It might make sense. But generally speaking, no, I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of that because unless you're in it, then you've not gone through the BS that's required to get into something, like spending time lining up your ducks in a row,
Hmm.
actually spending your money, which is the biggest. That's what you normally, most humans, that's when they'll pull the trigger and they're committed. When once that money's gone, they're like, damn, the money's gone, I'm doing this. Funny thing, I'll give you an example of why I believe that, and then I'll see what you have to say. So my buddy, he's got a couple of sea-doos, and he was always telling me, get your boater's license so I can get you out on the water. Get your boater's license. So a couple of years ago, I went to do my boater's license, and I found a site that would allow you to do the whole thing except actually write the exam at the end. At that point, you had to pay. Okay.
Hmm.
But up until that point, so like 7 modules or something, you didn't have to pay. And I was slogging. Like I was like not into it. And when I was into it, I didn't really care. I didn't end up getting it. Okay. Recently, I don't know, maybe a month ago, he put the same thing out to me. He's like, bro, get your friggin' boater's license. Let's get on the water. I'm like, okay. So then I tried to find that site. I couldn't find it. I found another site. Well, guess what? They let you do the first module for free. But then right at the end of that module, they're like, you either pay or you don't go on.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, shoot. I'm telling you right now, the minute I hit enter and they took my credit card and they took my money, I got that thing done in a weekend. Because I
Hmm.
was like, I was like, I paid. This came out of my pocket. My money's gone. I'm getting this boater's license. And next thing you know, I got my boater's license and I ended up on the water with him, and it was fun. And he was like, he wasn't going to let me on that machine, even though I said, coming soon. No, he's like, I don't think so. And it was hilarious because when we got to the water, he's like, do you have your boater's card with you? Because the law is you have to have it with you. I'm like, yeah, here it is. And he's like, awesome. So it was like coming soon wasn't going to work for him because he's like, no, because if the police pull us over and they want to know where your documentation is and you're like, it's
Hmm.
coming soon, that's not going to work with the police,
I know.
right? So just an example, I had to, once the money left my hands, I was like, I'm getting that license come hell or high water because they just took my money. So that is a rolling thing, but I've heard it from other people that once they pay, they don't have skin in the game. But
Hmm.
once they do, some eventually don't care, and some really do care. So that's kind of my perspective on that. Um, Gary's with us. Good morning, Gary.
Good morning, Gary.
Rochelle's with us. Good morning, Rochelle.
Good morning, Rochelle.
And Rochelle says that you can't take certain courses without prerequisites. Therefore, you shouldn't be able to put AQ courses on your resume that aren't started yet.
There's the line in
Imagine
the sand. Rochelle's drawn it right there saying, "You shall not pass."
I just had this funny moment. I don't know how Rochelle's going to feel about this. I had this moment of thinking of seeing Rochelle as a principal, like literally seeing her as the administrator, looking at her resume, and the person has part one of something, and then it says coming soon, part two, like in a year, and then the gall to write the specialist coming soon in 2 years, and
Mm-hmm.
just her laughing because she's had this moment where she's talked to us about this. And then she's like, "What the frig, man? Okay, they have part one, but they're telling me in the next 2 years they're gonna have their specialists. That
Sometimes,
doesn't work."
we don't have to make the stories up.
You're
We
too
don't have to
true.
make them up. Anyone that I will say, spends a little bit of time with us on Saturday mornings, I think if you know, and you hear the stuff that we chat about. And I hope for anyone that's in the audience, anyone listening in, that there's a high percentage of, fiber in this. They're sort of listening. They're like, yep, yep, I've thought about that. Or, yep, I haven't thought about that. Maybe I should think about that. Um, I don't know if you and I deal in surprises on this podcast all that often. We're just like pulling it apart from the previous week. So pulling it apart. Um there we part of, I guess, here's the thing I will say about that Decoded podcast debate coming soon. It's true. Smiley face emoji or emoticon.
Oh,
Um
no, well, no, you don't, Rochelle. You can apply because you have part one. You can apply to the pool, you know that, and then you can just say coming soon, PQP part
But
two.
here's the thing, though, right? No, Rochelle is standing on the
I
right
know,
side of the line, right?
I
It's like,
know, I
no, like
know.
I ain't that person yet. I ain't that person yet. I don't know myself in that role, which I think is laudable. I think it's honest, it's straight up, it's clear. Um uh so yeah, then the podcast season 8 coming up. The one thing I will say, we have a pattern of behavior of delivering, right? So the season 8 is just the natural consequence of you and I staying connected as friends. Like that's where it's kind of embedded, right?
Hmm.
Um, and we both have made decisions to to kind of live our lives in a way that the Saturday morning works. So season 8, it's I guess it falls into the same kind of funny category of unfulfilled promises or product brand marketing. Um, the fact of it is though there's a pattern of behavior here that reinforces the likelihood that that product will be delivered, and will be delivered over summer actually. So the season 8 is just a weird thing because we actually don't stop. We just we meet up every once in a while in the summer too. So summer school version. Um, so season 8 as an actual uh, flag, I guess that's late August. Season 8 officially starts. Um, I'll be there. You gonna be there?
I plan to be there.
Fantastic, fantastic. Can't get my special ed specialist until I teach spec ed for 2 years. Yeah, yep. That type of enforced growth, I think, is I guess useful. Collecting a bunch of shingles without having the, I guess, on the ground experience. Is that a new thing? Is that a new thing? No, I think that's an old thing. I think I had to do that too. I have my specialist in spec ed. I've had it for a while though. I don't remember. I think there's probably, I wonder, do all AQs work like that to go to the part 2?
Oh,
You have to spend time
part one.
actually teaching. Part 1, they're like, come on in, give me your $800.
Part two is you have to have some teaching experience.
I feel like that gets waived sometimes.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, a superintendent, has to sign off on your paper for part two and
It's
three.
true.
So if If you have the
Anything could
paper
happen.
signed, you have the paper signed, right?
Yeah. I think they
Um,
like you if you're in a leadership. I know for spec ed, you know, to have the actual specialist, it's not, I think people get the specialist long before they actually have the leadership skills that are needed that sort of like go with the specialist, so to speak. But that part two, I would say part one and part two are the sort of like the two bookends to what I would say on a technical level you need to be able to do within spec ed. So like your hey, welcome to spec ed part, and then the part two, which if it still does, I don't know, kind of deals more, not more, but I remember that's where we talked about academic testing, and
mm,
so
um, shoot, man, I was gonna say something. It's gone now. Oh well, I'm sure it'll come back. Um,
mine didn't.
it
I'm
might come
still,
back later.
yeah, it could. Yeah, that's right. I'll text you later.
Oh, I know what I wanted to.
There
So,
we go.
the coming soon, right? So let me
Mm-hmm.
tell you, uh, again this week, Gary's killing me. Um, I, I I ended up talking to Gary on the phone this week, and it was a pleasant surprise because I wasn't expecting Gary to be on the other end of the phone.
Mm.
But I was talking to Gary, and the topic of esports came up,
Mm. I
and I
saw
got
something for Waterloo. Did I
yeah.
see that in
So
some feed? Waterloo was involved
Waterloo
in something?
Catholic District School Board put
Yeah.
on with in collaboration with Conestoga College an
Okay.
esports tournament the other day between our high schools. Uh, between four of our high schools here, and man, I, a mutual friend of Gary and mine was the coach for Gary's school, and I was just salivating the entire time. So yeah, our school board tweeted out or X'd out whatever, the message that hey, we're doing an esports competition today, and if you have time between this time and this time, you can click here to watch it live on Twitch and or YouTube. And I was just shaking my head laughing that the word Twitch came up, because you don't hear these things from the people that run these things in school boards. In my
Mm-hmm.
I, I'm not going to go there because I got nothing positive to say, and I don't want this to be negative. I want it to be positive right now. So, long story short, that's a fossil. That's a
You did
fossil.
it. You
I
did it.
did
You
it.
got there.
Um, let me be frank with you for a moment. Let me be honest as well as frank. um, Talking to Gary about the esports competition, and I was salivating. I was like, God damn, I missed that. I missed that. And then I was like a little bit not jealous, but like if I were in high school, you know, that would be right up my alley to
Mm.
say to somebody, I've got my level one coaching esports certification. How much of a geek do you have to be to say that out loud? It's not coming soon.
I was going to say it's not
I
in
have that
process. You got it.
credential.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And it would be kind of cool to flex and to use that, right? So it was just funny. Gary, keep saying your prayers, please. Gary, it's inside joke. Gary, say your prayers. Rochelle, I could use some prayers from you too. Um, so there you go of my esports thing. But I had this moment of like, God, you know, I could be an esports coach. I would love that. And I would love to be able to, again, take some kids that enjoy gaming and are willing to bump things up a bit to have it within a structure of a team with I want to say rules and regulations, but that's not how I mean it. Being on a team, there are responsibilities and there are privileges. And I think people who are just gaming at home for fun and are really into it and really talented and skilled, they may not see responsibilities and privileges. But once you're on a team and things are organized, you operate a certain way to improve. Even I was kind of geeking out because it was Rocket League. It was a Rocket League tournament, and right away the first thing I thought was, you win Rocket League in the air. So if I were a coach and I was coaching Rocket League per se, I would be like, there'd be a lot of time, a lot of emphasis spent on how well can you perform in the air, because that's, in my experience, that's where I've seen players go from good to great, is that they can handle the ball in the air and they know how to manipulate their vehicle. It's all that geeking out, but it comes with responsibility, right? It comes with the great things we learn from that we can learn from being on good sports teams, and then applying that to the esports thing. So I had 35-40 minutes of geeking out. Um, and I bring all that up just to say there is no coming soon. Like, I did the work, I got the credential, because a lot of people say, "Oh, I would be the esports coach," but they're just, I would be. Okay, well, that doesn't mean anything, and I've done that too. I've said, "I think I'm going to," but really there's nothing holding me to it. There's nobody holding me to account. I'm not even holding myself to account. So, coming soon, for me, it's a very funneled thing that in some cases I could see and approve of it, but in most cases I wouldn't. And I think you landed on the fact that when people produce and provide a record of production and
Artifact.
attainment, yeah, like there's proof of artifact over and over and over again, um, they get the benefit of the doubt, right?
Hmm.
So if you were to post on Instagram about a poem that's coming soon, or a creative that you're working on, that, and you say, hey, this is coming soon, I'm based on your history and me knowing you and how you operate, I'd be like, I give them the green light. I don't have a problem with you saying coming soon with in that realm, because
Hmm.
you produce, you execute, you live there. But you know, if you said, "Hey, Roland, can you take a look at my resume?" I'm like, "Yeah," and it says, you know, it says like coming soon, 2026. You'll be at this other school. I'm like, what? What are you doing, bro? Like, what do you mean there's an interview? There has to be positions open at the school. You have to have the qualifications to apply to the positions.
It's
Then you have
true.
to have it. Like, there's so many layers that I'm like, get your head out of your rear end. Coming soon, I will be at this school in 2026. What the hell is your problem?
You know what though? That feels like the what's that book? What's that book? That book that talks about, manifest destiny. The Not the answer, the not the path, the
I don't know what it is, but I know what you're talking about.
I thought there was a book that came out a few years ago, and I mean, part of it, that manifest destiny, is that you do sort of put those things out into the world. It's funny talking about that though. There is an interesting The Secret. I think it was called The
Oh,
Secret. Yeah. And it talks about how you can sort of like draw things towards you by sort of like operating in a certain way. I'm sure there's an element of vibrations and sort of karma and just living a good life that help. There's definitely an element of doing the work, though. You still got to do the work. So you don't get to say, in 2025, I'm going to win the lottery, right? If I'm thinking about my play from last night, you have to buy some tickets. You have to buy, like, you don't even, if you're not going to buy tickets, it's very, decrease the likelihood of ever succeeding, winning $1 million if you're not buying a ticket. Where was I going with this? So
like
the last,
willing your way
yeah,
into something,
yeah,
or
willing my way into my own sort of agency. I will say that a year ago, around this time, a year ago today, when I knew that South Simcoe Theatre, when I finally found out that they were going to put on the play God of Carnage, I did have a conversation with one of the actors that I was in that play at the time. I'm like, I'm going to get that role. Like, I want to be in that play. And so I mean, that's the declaration. On the inside, though, I bought the play, I read the play, I shaped my audition to sort of show what I thought were characteristics of the actual the character that I wanted. So when I came to the audition, I arrived having done the homework. So if opportunity presented, I would see it. So there was an element, I guess, of manifest destiny in there, and sort of like willing the universe to give me a chance at this role. But like you said, I had to do work. I didn't just say it to my acting partner at the time and then sit and wait for it to come to me. I declared it and then chased it. And there still wasn't the element. There's still, like, I wasn't putting in it actually on the resume saying I'm this character in 2024, but mentally I had done that. I would say mentally I had done that, but I didn't put it out there for other people to consume. I just had it like in my own head that it was going to happen, and I did the work. So I was keeping it very much a private process because I knew that it would in some ways be a private victory if we're sort of, drawing in Stephen Covey kind of thinking too. Like that idea of having the private victory, it doesn't have to be something that I share out. I can actually just savor the fact. I did mention it to Karen, my acting partner at that point, a lovely actor, Franca, who, interestingly enough, when we talked together a year ago, she had said, "Yeah, I like that play. I might audition." She did, and we were actually cast together again in this new play. So we both got parts in it and didn't know that we would be put together in the play. So we had these really parallel paths to something that we both declared a year before would be cool to make happen. Now I don't know her process, but I know for me, like I said, I bought the play, I studied the character, I did the work that set myself up in a way that I think helped me be successful in the role.
So I can appreciate everything you just said there. I think the people who advertise out loud all
Mm.
these things that they're going to will themselves into
The
without
coming
doing the
soon,
work,
the coming soon, right?
coming soon, I guess, is either laughable or exciting depending on who you're talking to. So if you were to tell me a coming soon moment around theater, to me, I think excitement for you, because I my experience with you is that when you say you're going to do something and then you move into the next level of that seriousness, you do it. So for me, it's exciting for me to hear you say, "Hey, this is coming up. I'm kind of interested." You start with, "Oh, I'm sharing with my friend about something because I'm talking it through or whatever." You talk to your spouse about it. You with me have not been somebody who tells me about 1,000 ideas and none of them happen. That's not how you roll with me.
Mm-hmm.
So if you give me a coming soon and you don't make it, it's not even like I wouldn't use that against you, because out of the 100 coming soons, you did 99 of them, right? And I know your work ethic, you put in the work. Um, it's just for some, we all know people who do the coming soon because they think it's going to give them an advantage, but they
Well, can we pause there for a sec?
sure.
Are we now in a space? I'd be curious. I am curious to hear, if Gary and Rochelle are still here. We can say that people think it gives us an advantage. But would you say that because of social media and um because of having personas, and everyone has access to some sort of a persona now, does it actually work? Does the promise of coming soon actually get you something? Like, in your perspective, do you notice this, the individuals that are, from maybe your perspective, my perspective, they're marketing themselves in such a way that when they say coming soon, or they're putting it cracks me up, like the whole, so people put lawn, for sale signs on their front lawn. The for sale sign means that, at some point this house will be sold. But now we have the announcement about the announcement signs out on the plate on the front lawn too. So coming soon, this house will be for sale at some point, and then it sits there for a month and a half until it finally says for sale. um does that same kind of tactic, do you think, is it a tactic you noticed it, let's say, in education? So let's flip it back to that these people that are sort of like promoting even before something happens. And, from your perspective, do you think these people actually are getting ahead in the business of school because they operate that way?
I don't know. I don't know because I don't know. For me, for me personally, the coming soon signs, I only pay I will only give it attention, serious attention, if I know, if I have some context around the situation and the person.
Right.
Oh, here's a good one. Maybe it's not a good one. There are people, I've seen it far too often, and you probably have too, where people are emotional about something and they're like, I'm doing this next. I'm doing this. I can't do this. What's happening now? So I'm doing this next. And then you talk to them a week later, and the coming soon sign's gone. I'm like, well, and I have this real problem that when people tell me they're going to do something, I actually think they're going to do it. So then when they don't, I kind of look at them with disdain and a little bit of, my nose is kind of up at them, like, you said you were going to do this, you're not doing it now. They're like, no, I changed my mind, or yada yada yada. And I'm like, oh god. And the oh god is, if you do that 3 or 4 more times to me, I'm not going to talk to you about this stuff anymore, because you're full of shit. You say you're going to do something, you say it's coming soon, but you only say that because of the context you're in at the moment. You don't actually mean it, because when you say coming soon and you actually want to manifest that, man, you got to put in some work. Like when you're talking about selling the house, if I say to my neighbor today when I'm out cutting the grass, hey, you know what? Sarah and I are going to sell the house. He's like, when? I'm like, it's coming soon. He would be like, whatever. Uh-oh. I just got a notification on my thing that my Wi-Fi is low on StreamYard, even though I'm wired in. So if something happens here, you know why, okay?
Hmm.
So to me, getting that for sale sign up on my lawn means I have to talk to a realtor. I might have to sign some papers of intent. Like coming soon for me is the prerequisite to putting in the work. And I don't know what you'd say about me, but you've known me for several years now. Do I tend to do the coming soon and then not execute? I don't know what your thought is on that. I know you don't do that. Or you haven't tended to say. There have been times where you're like, I think I'm going to do this, and it doesn't come to fruition. But I don't see that as like I don't see that as part of your standard operating procedure, that you say you're going to do something, you never do it over and over and over again.
Hmm.
Um, and you also don't walk around talking about 50 coming soons, because I know that nobody has the capacity to do that many. So I just don't feel good about the coming soon in general. So I don't even know about this trend. But if I were a principal and I was trying to hire a grade 6 teacher, and no, let me change that. Let's say I'm trying to hire a grade 1 teacher, and I look at their resume. They've applied for the job, but I look at their resume and they don't have primary qualifications. They have junior and intermediate. And it says on their resume, coming soon, I plan on getting my primary qualification. Well, first of all, if there are 50 other resumes in front of me where the people are primary qualified, I may just put their coming soon aside and be like, I don't need to talk to them. If I know them really well, and I've worked with them before, and I know their character and I'm fond of the character, then they get an interview and I'm like, what does this mean? And they're like, you know what, Roland, I will take it this summer. I'm not taking it unless I get this job. Depending on their track record and how often they've done the coming soon and not gotten through, or how often they've accomplished all kinds of things on their own with nobody saying anything, I might be like, okay, okay. I mean, that's a big risk. Even as I say it, I feel nervous. Like, Jesus, I'm going to hire somebody that doesn't even have the quals. But coming soon, I don't know. Or maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm like, coming soon. Then they forward an email to me that says that they're registered. It's not paid yet, but they went ahead and they took the next step and they registered for the course. Then the next step is the payment, and then the next step is doing the work and getting the qualification. I don't know, bro. For me, I do know. I think I lean on. I'm not a fan of the coming soon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with the in progress. Like, hey, Roland, I want this grade one job at your school. I'm literally taking my primary AQ right now. It ends next month. I'm like, okay, you know, somebody, and I will believe that, because for somebody to lie to my face about that, that's a big lie, right? That's huge if you get caught in a lie like that. But if you're like, I've got one more month, I'm in the AQ, and I did it on purpose so that I could apply for these primary jobs, and I'd be like, okay, in progress, I can deal with. Coming soon, coming soon, with me having to put money into your game, I'm not fond of. Coming soon and I get to just observe, sure, go nuts. Do it as many times as you like. We got some comments. Gary says he thinks that the coming soon marketing strategy does have an impact, but not without action.
Okay.
Okay. And then Gary says, though I am uncomfortable with it because I fear it being weighted more than continued action. And then Gary says, can too much weight on past accomplishments also be problematic with leadership? Gary, I need you to give me more for that one. Can too much weight on past accomplishments also be problematic with leadership? Oh, you mean, no, tell us more, Gary. I don't want to make any assumptions. I don't want to make any assumptions. I usually do make assumptions. Um, I think many of us do, even though we pretend we don't. Coming soon. Roland's going to stop making assumptions.
Unfortunately, we're human.
We are. We are human.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Change your luck.
Change your luck. Yeah, I don't see a clear path out of people using this, because this particular approach is quite heavily implemented in social media, right? And it's so, to that end, like, social media's influence on how we do professional communication and how we do professional relationships, it's rife. Like, I don't, there isn't a good way for us to get out of that, space. I had a post I was just going to drop up on Insta, to kind of like an open letter post, like, asking, would you feel comfortable getting rid of all your email use and only use social media for both professional and personal communication? Like, are we you know what I mean? Like, are we kind of there where we don't need email anymore? We're holding on to it because we think we should. It's kind of like, it's funny. I'm not a proponent of one tool to rule them all, but email is like one of those. Like, somehow we believe it's a necessary thing. Um, but we also thought paper mail was a necessary thing until email started, right? So I guess I'm just in that same way. Um, I think that sorry, not same, maybe similar. I do think that we're in this kind of funky space with social media influence on how we do school. And I don't know if it's better or worse, but social media on school means that our communications are going to be constant brand marketing. Like, I don't think we can help it. The fact that now you see signatures on emails that also have links to, the social media sites, or some quippy kind of like philosophical blah blah blah, like hopeful quote at the bottom, is that we understand that it's constantly embedded. We're constantly kind of operating this way. And I think part of that will be these promissory notes of experience, because we're more comfortable existing in this kind of fluidity than we are existing in the absolute. Being one thing means you miss out on opportunity, like you're entitled to it. So why not put it out there? And if someone believes you, who's to argue, right? But I would say, I hear you when you say someone mentioning that something's in process, that you're comfortable with that. Like, I guess for me, I'm still thinking, but it's still not done. I guess if they allow you the freedom as an administrator to kind of say, okay, you can consider this person. It reminds me of, there we go. I caught my thought. It reminds me of, it's a pretty bold move that I don't know if it's my school is doing it, dude, but like, I don't know if it's just my school doing it. But in the past, and I don't know, maybe our other colleagues may have noticed this. In the past, students partway through the semester 2, they will, especially if they're trying to optimize their potential to be taken up by their university of choice or college of choice, whatever their post-secondary destination of choice is. They will, as they're in grade 12 physics, they will sign up for summer school grade 12 physics. And then they will also sign up for grade 12 physics potentially in September. Like, they will actually stack that all up and then try to get the best possible outcome. That's one version. The other version is they'll finish grade 12 physics, grade 11 physics, let's say, and they're fine. And then they'll sign up for summer school, grade 11 physics, and also sign up for September, grade 11 physics. And for the most part, from my experience, our system has allowed students to do that. So you're basically, it's kind of like double dipping. You're saying, I'm going to take it in the summer. If I don't like it, my mark in the summer, then I'm set up. I'm protected in September. And this often comes on the heels of just in case conversations. Just in case you don't do well at summer school, we're going to keep it on your schedule for September. My school this year is removing those courses from September. If you're signed up for the next course, like you finish your grade 11 physics and then you sign up for grade 12 physics in the summer, as an example, if you've asked, because the timelines are different, you would have already said you wanted grade 12 physics in like March. You don't sign up for summer school until May, early May-ish, depending on, somewhere around there, early May. So you would have already chosen your next science course ready to go. Something makes you decide, I'm going to take it in summer as well. My school, maybe my board, I'll just say my school, made the announcement that you will be removed from those courses in September. You're set up to take it in the summer. Ostensibly, you don't get to double dip. That's a pretty bold move. But it does keep the system honest. You don't get to claim ahead of time that you've succeeded in something. Not only that, we're not going to give you credit in it until you've got it. So no, you don't get to sort of like stack it up like that and keep all options open. All options open is no longer an option. And I'm kind of liking it. I like this accountability. Now, there's an efficiency that's coming with this. Part of the motivation behind this, at least my suspicion is, because I've seen this before, is there's a limit on sections. And the last thing we can do is have a kid waiting for a course and prohibiting, which basically keeps another kid from taking the course that didn't sign up for summer school. Like, that's a blockage that doesn't make sense to me. And there's a certain privilege to it because the louder voice, sometimes parents are like, no, like there's a whole kind of like, there's power in being able to operate that way. And I don't agree with that. I do like this. You don't get to have the course. You don't get to have the course twice in your schedule. And if you fail it, you fail it. And they've said openly to these students, and it comes September, if you don't do well in summer school, you're on the wait list. You don't get the front of no, you because there was a conversation that I came across where someone said, okay, if you're pulling me off, then I want to be at the top of the wait list. They're like, nope, you don't even get on the wait list. You don't get to preload yourself into this qualification. So this whole coming soon is fascinating to me. It's fascinating to me because I think it's a thing that sometimes it suggests to me that there are spaces within our system that are ethereal, like they're very loose. There actually isn't the firm structure to it that we believe, because someone's qualifications are based on my belief system, not actually based on them doing the work.
I hear you.
It's very creative. And I think it's something that has existed for a while. I remember back when I was maybe second year teacher, a principal told me flat out, you want to be in guidance next year? I'm like, okay, sounds good. I want to do it. And he's like, full-time counseling. I'm like, sounds good. So I wasn't even teaching that year. He said, okay, so it's yours. And this summer you have to take the guidance one. I'm like, okay. So, I benefited. And that was like 2004 or something like that. But that was the conversation. It was that straight up. You think you can do guidance counseling? Yeah, I think I could do it. Okay, it's yours. You just have to take the AQ. I'm like, all right. I signed up for the AQ. I came back as a guidance counselor. Both sides of my mouth on that one. I get it. It's
Right.
just that was also but that was like, I wasn't making a promise. I wasn't making a promise that I could do anything. I was taking a deal. He was like, "Are
Hmm.
you interested in this?" I'm like, yeah, sure, I am. I'm interested. He's like, okay, in order to be there, you have to have this course. I'm like, okay, I'll get the course. At the time, naive, my mind, I'm like, okay, that's how this works. That's how this system works, right? I didn't have anything to measure it against. Now, I would say there are protections within our system to inhibit that type of, because that's nepotism, that's favoritism, there's a backdoor dealing that we don't want that in our system. You don't want someone to be able to do a closed door on that and say, by the way, unqualified person, it's yours as long as you do this thing. Because I'm betting there were other qualified individuals, but mine was maybe the schedule that was most manipulatable. So I was like the easy path,
Hmm.
or easier. So yeah,
Yep. Um,
it's a great topic.
Rochelle said to Gary, I think if you look too far back on previous experience, it isn't relevant as things change quickly. So I am with Rochelle on that, but my caveat on that is there may have been certain experiences that are kind of unique and aren't ongoing that might be of interest. Maybe I say that selfishly because of my Google certified innovator status, which still exists. I got certified in 2014. It's been 10 years since I went to the Google Teacher Academy. Does that mean I'm still innovative? They think I am. Actually, they ask every year. Every year I have to provide them with evidence of innovation in order to keep that title attached to my name in their ecosystem. And so somebody might look at my resume and be like, "Why is this on his resume?" Whereas, I know that they are doing something every year to be like, "Hey, if you still want to keep this, what are you doing that's innovative? How can you justify this?" Which I appreciate from them because they give us every opportunity. If it depends on who, for me, I think it's I'm accountable. I know that for me to keep that status with them, I have to demonstrate that I'm doing things that are innovative. And to say to Rochelle, how many other people have gone to the Google Teacher Academy, right? So even though I guess you could look at it every different way, I like to include it. because it's worked for me. But I would appreciate somebody saying, "Why is this here? You did this 10 years ago. What does this matter?" And then I have to justify it. So I hear what you're saying, Rochelle. You look at, but people in education do that all the time. They stack resume. They talk about stuff that they did 7 years ago. Um, and I don't know why, but it seems to be part of the culture in education that I've experienced and witnessed. Um, Along those lines, Gary says that resumes and portfolios being full of credentials, but they aren't reflective of what someone brings to a position. So you got stuff that, you know, this doesn't apply anymore because it's really old and things have changed. You might be able to show someone that you have been part of old things that go away over and over again. So then for me, I would look for a pattern. This person continuously jumps into activities that at the time are given lots of credence, and after about 2 years nobody cares anymore, but this person has demonstrated um, the risk taking and the interest in jumping into things, learning about how they work. And then it's not, is it their fault that it's been abandoned? Not necessarily, but they've moved on to something else. I would look for those patterns, not of the, what have you did this 10 years ago, now what have you done? Like, there's nothing else here that indicates any kind of movement in growth. But so I like this. I like digging into this a little bit.
There's a kind of a whacked confluence too, though. You know, back in the day, you'd have your CV and you'd have your resume. Resumes, your customized shingle that you think specifically promotes you to a job. And I think that this idea of leaving stuff on your resume is weird, only because, again, I'll go back to social media. Why should anyone give a shit about your full professional life? Right? Do you know what I mean? Like, and the part of the justification is like, well, because I guess that's what social media is, right? Like, that's why I mean there's this confluence here of resume, CV. And really, I've never been asked for a CV ever. So I kind of think of it as just like the running log of my credentials, right? The running log of my experiences. Basically the dumping ground for everything that I've done as a professional. So yeah, I think that the idea that maybe the CV doesn't, and again, maybe resume doesn't exist as we believe anymore. Maybe the CV doesn't exist as anymore. And this is what kind of led me to, do we just want social media? Searchable, algorithmical. I made that word up. Almost works. I don't think it does though. And we leave it to whoever's looking for a candidate to decide whether or not you're viable. Because we also know that beyond the resume, beyond the CV, you're also getting lurked online. So why don't we just say that? Why don't we just say this is officially a part of the interview process? So, and if you happen to have posted your work there, then great, because then you have the body of work that sort of matches up to whatever you're saying your qualification is. But to say that you just have Spec Ed 7 and you've never done any of the academic testing that comes along with Spec Ed 2, well, my God, like, what's the point? Your qual is just the next piece of paper, but it has absolutely no roots in it. So
Good stuff. Good stuff
is
on.
it? Is it?
I like it.
Are we good?
I'm good. I'm good.
You are.
But I
I
don't know.
started to scribble.
Is that? Oh, I like that. Okay. What does it say underneath the nose?
Blah blah blah. This
Oh,
that blah blah blah.
okay. Blah blah blah. This.
Yada 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 yada.
That's a good one. Gary says he likes the idea of being asked why items are on my CV, giving me the opportunity to respond. Uh, respond to prove something is still part of how I operate. Yeah, no, I like that. And that's why interviews, conversations can be so valuable. And I would argue that what I've noticed is making connections and talking to people about who you are, what you do, what you believe, and building like a base, right? So, um, because you never know what is to come later, right? So, for example, I recently had to apply to jobs again, and I removed a bunch of stuff from my resume because based on the work that I had just done over the last 3 years, I felt that in an interview, there are some things that I couldn't land on if somebody said to me, "Hey, you mentioned this on your resume. Can you talk about it a little bit?" And I felt like those things were more classroom teacher world type of things, and because I haven't been a classroom teacher in 3 years, then I wanted to lean more on the amazing things that I've been able to learn and accomplish since leaving the room, and kind of how I'm going to bring that to back to a classroom. And then once I'm in the room, then I can continue to reinvent or repurpose or realign myself with different things. But the Google Certified Innovator certification is on my resume because I can speak to what got me there. I can speak to what it did to be there and what I've done since I've left. And I feel like I still I still meet the philosophy and the requirements of that. I don't, and that, to Rochelle's credit or comment, and same with Gary, that experience, that experience was a major personal and professional um, accomplishment. Man, dude, I remember, I still think, how lucky was I to apply and get into that, because when I heard the stories after about, there are people there who had applied like 4 times previous and were denied, and they just, and all these people, and they looking at me, they're like, "How many times did you apply?" I'm like, "Once," and I didn't even think I was going to get in. The experience of putting the application together, it was one of those, I hope it happens, but I know the odds are against me. But even putting together the package to apply was a huge accomplishment. And it left
Mhm.
me with an artifact, a video, of a 1 minute video on why I should be accepted. And in that 1 minute video, I got to talk about the amazing things that my students and I did and were doing for me to try to get there. So that was really cool, that the experience itself was a huge learning for me, and I didn't think it was going to happen because just the numbers weren't on my side.
My last thought, I like what Gary said about having to speak to the CV. I think a critical piece to that is that if we could be so bold to add is like, okay, cool, Gary, so tell me about your experience. Tell me about your experience within this thing that you're saying that's on your CV or your resume. And then as the story unfolds, he's like, okay, here's the next real critical part. Who besides you witnessed this event? And then the next step, as from the interviewer's perspective, would be to go to talk to that person. Because if we're talking intention versus impact, I can speak quite eloquently about my experience within my experiences. But really, who gives a shit about that? You want to know, and I think especially within leadership, how did this play out for the individuals that you may or may not have actually checked in with? So we get it. You were there. Cool. That was cool. You ran that club. You ran that evening information night. Where's the data to suggest that that actually was received well? So cool. You built the skill. You've done the work. You've done the homework at least. But I think I need to talk to someone who witnessed you doing this thing. And then we really broaden out who those witnesses are. It doesn't have to be someone in formal leadership. So it kind of strips us of how who we have to sort of have as our referees. So who's our reference? We can actually broaden that out a little bit within the CV experience and talking about what you can do. It would be great if we could talk to former students. You know what I mean? Like we talk to these individuals that were on the receiving end of the great stuff that we believe we're doing. So that would be my end on that. Because again, social media, I don't know, there's a very low percentage that I believe of anything on my Instagram or my Facebook, unless I have the personal relationship. I can notice it IRL, right? So
Cool, man.
that's it.
Thank you.
We
And
solved it.
we solved it. Thanks, Gary and Rochelle, for jumping in, checking us out, being part of the conversation. Anybody else who is listening, thanks for coming over.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for today. Thanks for your artwork. I love the Pinocchio nose, or at least that's what I took from it.
Pinocchio knows.
Gary
Pinocchio
likes
knows.
the idea, Chris. And he says, thanks. Thank you, Gary.
Yeah. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Rochelle.
Okay. This was season 7, episode 33, number 298. 300 coming soon. Peace, y'all.
Peace.